Good morning, everyone. Marius van Wyk from Mossel Bay. I'm a compliance auditor down here. I've done Business 101 before. A short background, business-wise, I graduated from Stellenbosch Business School in '92. So I've got a bit of background in business management, and I became a plumber in 2000. So I've been in the industry quite some time and enjoy the industry immensely. And I enjoy doing presentations as well. Just a few tips to continually prevent COVID-19. Always wear your mask when out in public. Wash your hands with soap or alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow or with tissue, then throw the tissue in the bin. Clean and disinfect frequently used surfaces and objects. Good. So this morning's presentation is managing the request for a certificate of compliance for the sale of a property. This is becoming more relevant as people find more often that, especially the transfer lawyers, once the property is sold, they have the new owner continuously calling them with all the problems they have, and this wasn't shown and that wasn't shown. They've discovered this or that. And so they've discovered that if they've got a certificate of compliance, they can remove the responsibility to somebody else. So that is basically what it is. It's taking responsibility, taking ownership of an installation. But this is actually quite something to manage. So how do we manage it currently? So we're going to have a quick look at it. I'm going to show you a Word document a bit later in the presentation. So I will be switching from the presentation into a Word document. So if something hasn't gone wrong at that stage, it's just to switch over to the document. So before we can continue to how we handle it exactly, we are unfortunately have to go and look at what governs us and what is compliance. Governance is made up, it encompasses the system by which a plumbing company is controlled and operates, and the mechanisms by which it and its plumbers are held to account. It's accountability. So whatever you do, there's accountability within it. So exactly the same if you're going to do a certificate of compliance for the sale of a property, there's accountability. So how would good governance look like in the perfect world of plumbing? And that is Steve Brown's favorite word, perfect world of plumbing. It does not exist. So working in a controlled plumbing environment, working in an environment free of corruption, working in an environment free of competition, working in an environment with compliant products, working in an environment of compliant following consumers. That would be the perfect world. So how do we receive this? We normally find the phone ringing and you receive an email that says, I need a plumbing certificate of compliance for my house that I sold. So that is a problem. What is your answer? The answer would be the following. Currently, the plumbing industry does not have a certificate of compliance for the sale of a property, only for work done by a licensed plumber certifying that the work he physically did is compliant. So how are we going to do this? So the way I handle it is the request is by doing a physical inspection of the property, sir. My inspection fee is 850 Rand, whatever your inspection fee is. It's just stating exactly what it's going to cost, because that is what they want. They want to know what it's going to cost, because the electrical certificate of compliance is going to cost them X amount as well. So that is what it goes about, it's cost. So put it out there in front of them already from the beginning. After the inspection, I will write a report of the inspection, which indicates the plumbing of the property with all the compliances and non-compliances. The cost of the report depends on the size of property and the time spent on the report. An average 3-bedroom house and 2 bathrooms would be 1,350, for example, if I spend 3 hours on the report. So you give him a rough estimate because he wants to know what it's going to cost. So I charge by the hour writing a report, much like lawyers do. Once the report is completed, the person requesting the report, the certificate of compliance, decides if they want to fix the non-compliances. Once fixed, the licensed plumber fixing the non-compliance issues the PLB certificate of compliances for the non-compliances fixed by him. Then the report and the certificate of compliance for the fixes of the non-compliances constitute a legal document, reporting and certifying the plumbing of the property in question. So that constitutes a certificate of compliance for the sale of a property. You can't just use our certificate of compliance because it's not work that you've done. There's no box that you can tick for inspection. So the client it's the client's choice to accept or find someone else. Plumbers have now become a professional service and a career. That's what you've got to really realize now. If the client wants someone cheaper, let him find a sucker who is prepared to put his neck on the line for cheaper. Once you report and certify after a fix with a certificate of compliance, the installation becomes your responsibility. So what does that mean? Compliance. Compliance is what is going to protect your business, because you are now certifying basically that you've inspected this property and it's either non-compliant or compliant. So how do you protect your business? It is essential for the plumber to communicate effectively, not only verbally, but in written communication. Now, we've previously done a presentation on Business 101 on written communication. And please, if there's a need to do it again or to do more about report, how are we going to put this report together, please put it out there and we can see to do that in the future. Written communication is key. You cannot protect yourself if not working towards compliance and factual information. What does a typical company do to be compliant? He appoints a compliance officer, an individual who ensures that the company complies with its outside regulatory and legal requirements, as well as internal policies and bylaws. Compliance officers have a duty to their employer to work with management and staff to identify and manage regulatory risk. So it's all about the risk. Once you fill in a report, or you say this is compliant or that is not compliant, you are taking a risk because you're stating a fact out there. So who or what is the plumber's compliance officer? A compliance officer. The PLB Plumbing Certificate of Compliance is our compliance officer. It's a legally binding document and part of our written communication. If done correctly, it is the best protection a plumber and his or her company has ever had. If done incorrectly, it could incriminate you, as you have signed that all the work complies to the set standards and was done by you under your supervision. The same goes for a written report on existing plumbing works. But to understand how to write this, you have to understand compliance. That is very important. And this is my favorite slide. Compliance is made up of laws. If we look at the top of the slide, of the three: the Water Services Act, Consumer Protection Act, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And this is very important when you talk to the consumer as well, because you can say to him, so I can't do this or I can't do that, because remember, I am governed by these three acts, and remember them. And then obviously, besides the acts, we have regulations to follow. The regulations is the National Building Regulation, SANS 10400 Part P, specifically on drainage. Obviously, the municipal bylaws in the area of responsibility of the local authority that you work. And then SANS 10252 Part 1, water, and Part 2, which is drainage. And then obviously our mandatory installation standards for solar, heat pumps, and hot water. We all know those three standards. And if those are all put into your document, it becomes compliance. It becomes compliant. And if nothing complies to any of these, it's non-compliant. So understand this and have them available. So compliance, how is compliance certified? By completing a certificate of compliance from the professional body of the PLB, the PLB. Why do we do this? Why a written report? It's a management of risks and responsibility. Because if we just go do an inspection and say everything's okay, it looks good, we're not managing the risk and responsibility. Because once that new owner moves in and he has a complaint about the plumbing, he's going to say to the transfer lawyer, I've got a problem. And he's going to say, yes, here's the plumber that did the inspection, speak to him. And it becomes your risk and your responsibility. And you didn't even work there then. So once you've written the report, you managed all the risk and responsibility, and you put out a detailed record of work inspected, and that is kept because that's your record. And you can state, but this is what I inspected, this is what I wrote. Why do you do a COC? It's, once again, management of risks and responsibility. A detailed record of work done is then kept. So once the work that was non-compliant is done, a detailed record of the work is kept as well. So then you've completed the compliance in a full circle by giving a report on what is compliant, non-compliant on the property. And then if there was work done either by you or by another plumber, and that document then has a detailed record of work that is done. But what is very important is here, once again, and this is what I find on a regular basis when I look at COCs, is that the plumbers are not writing out the detailed record of the work done. And that is what the certificate of compliance states exactly there. It says detail of work. So absolutely all detail. There's more than enough space, especially if you're doing it online, to write in the detail. If you're doing a handwritten certificate of compliance, add a paper to it, but write in the detail so that that is covering you. Because, you know, if you just write there a new house or geyser installed, that means that you're taking responsibility for everything. Maybe not. So just put in the details of the work that you've done, but obviously detail. So written report, you manage the risk and responsibility. There's a detailed record of work and inspection that is kept. Reporting on all the non-compliances, and once again, record keeping of non-compliances. So there's a complete record of all the compliances and non-compliances. So the licensed plumber corrects the non-compliances, and the licensed plumber issues a PRB certificate of compliance. And then that written report and the COC becomes a document that can constitute a document for the inspection for the sale of a property. And all your management of risks and responsibility is done, and it's completed. So it's gone through the full circle. So let's look at the sale of a property. How are we going to do this? What to do when a COC is requested for the sale of a property? The IOPSA home inspection list is an option. There's on our website, there's a home inspection list that you can download. You can take that. It's basically a tick box, but that is not something you can just give to the owner. As you ticked it, the tap is leaking or you inspected the bath, but a written report can be much more complete and have much more detail about the inspection that you've done. So you can use that just for your purpose of getting the information together once you have to go and write the report. So the written report could also be requested after a plumbing failure by a consumer or insurance company. So this is an extension of your company's capabilities in the sense, if you are able to do this inspection and write a report, you can then do it for insurance companies when there's damage, water damage, whatever the case may be, you can do an inspection and a report on it. The service could be an expansion in your company's capabilities, as said. So report writing, how do you do this report? First of all, the composition of a report is going to be a title, introduction, aim, the report, the body of the report. It's going to have findings and recommendations, which also would be the compliances and non-compliances. And it's going to have a conclusion with a list of findings and recommendations about the compliances, non-compliances. And you'll see just now when we get to the report that I've got here as an example, it will be a suggestion where you're going to say, well, this is a critical non-compliances and this is non-critical. And then it's up to the owner to decide if they want to fix it or not fix it. And you leave it to them. And they'll say, okay, well, we're going to fix this, we're going to fix that. And then obviously you just do what they ask you to do. And if there's any appendices to the document, you add that to the document. Remember, once again, when you write a report, is who the reader will be. If it's a plumber, you can be more technical specific. But in this case, if it's for Mr. Jones, use easy, understandable terms, not too technical. Once again, in an introduction, it contains a background to the situation, any information that the reader would require to understand what the report is about. So we're going to move. I'm just going to go out of this document and we'll go into the Word document now. And we'll increase the size. Okay, good. This would be a typical inspection report for the sale of a property. Let's see if I've got the whole screen in there. It seems like it. There we go. All right. Obviously, your title, it's a clear title stating exactly what it is. It's inspection report on plumbing installation and the address and the date. And in the introduction, this is typically what I use. I get the background to exactly what it's about. Currently, a plumbing certificate of compliance does not exist for the sale of a property, and the Plumbing Industry Registration Board. And just look at the way I write that. I have the acronym behind in brackets, so that if I use it later in the document, if you see down here where my cursor is showing, I can use those acronyms without explaining what they are, because obviously they don't mean anything to the consumer out there. He doesn't know what PLB stands for, or COC for that matter. So the PLB is currently investigating and developing this option. The current PLB certificate of compliance available is not designed for this purpose and can therefore not be issued for the sale of a property. Any work done by a licensed plumber hereafter would require the licensed plumber to issue a certificate of compliance from the professional body of plumbers, being the PRB. As a licensed plumber, and now here, what am I doing over here? I am now also going to, I've got a conflict of interest for this sake. I'm an auditor, so I don't want to reflect anything about being an auditor here, and I want to just put it aside so that it doesn't reflect on IOPSA or the PRB for this matter. So I say, as a licensed plumber and compliance auditor for the Institute of Plumbing, IOPSA, I do the inspection in my private capacity with my qualification as a licensed plumber to inspect and deliver a report. This report in no way reflects the opinion of IOPSA or the PRB. The report is based on the governing acts, regulations, and standards. And then I'll list the act, the Water Services Act, exactly what is on that compliance slide that I showed you, the regulations and installation standards, and then I state here inspection. I will note all non-compliances in terms of the above acts, regulations, and installation standards in terms of my inspection of the property. The requirement to refix would be for the decision of the requesting parties of this inspection. The refix of the said non-compliances must be done by a licensed plumber who will then deliver a certificate of compliance of the PRB for the work done by him at the property and only for the work he specifies in the certificate. So there I've qualified, I've given the background to it, how this thing will work and how this document will, must be read. The aim of the report is to deliver a report on the inspection at number 4 Emura Street, Donna Bay, done by me, a licensed plumber, and I'll give my license number, currently licensed with the PRB. And then I'll go about writing my report. A water meter, very important always, where's the water meter located? Is it working? So I state there, the water meter is located on the right-hand side of the property, if you face it from the road, etc. And then the meter is accessible with a stopcock at the earth side of the waterway. I also state if there's a problem. The water meter is also within the earth boundary, which could pose a problem for reading if a wall is erected. Moving the water meter to the outside of the property can only be done by the local council for the owner's account normally. So I give a bit more information there. And then I just state that happens, the water meter has zero flow with all taps closed, as seen on the water meter below. And then I have a photo in there, so it doesn't come up on this presentation, but I would have a photo in this area of the water meter with a reading on the water meter. I'll go about stating the balanced water pressure. The house does not have balanced water pressure. The pressure reducing valve is situated at the geyser, for instance, and I'll report on the geyser and the water over here. Also, a stop tap is required to the inlet of the house, which is situated at the rear where the bathrooms are situated. Solution would be to install a brass stop tap on the incoming line outside the house. I don't say it must be there. I'm just basically stating the fact. A garden tap located at the rear of the house not leaking. Then I start reporting on the sewer line. The sewer line runs from underneath the floor in the room adjacent to the laundry, which is situated behind the garage. And the laundry waste has no trap and emits sewer gases into the house, which is a serious health and safety concern. See how I bring the Health and Occupational Health and Safety Act into it. The smell is overwhelming when entering these rooms. On the photo below, the sewer line can be seen as marked in red to be running below ground to the manhole at the end of the line. The sewer line has no ventilation stack, which is a requirement within 6 meters of the highest point of the sewer line. Currently, the venting is taking place into the house. A vent stack, and then I'll make I state the fact here of what is in SANS 10252 Part 2. A vent stack should be placed as indicated on the photo below in 110 millimeter pipe with an open vent cowl above the roof as required by the standard 10252 Part 2 and SANS 400 Part B of the National Building Regulation. And once again, I would have the photo in there. And then I'd state here on the photo above, I also indicated that the gully would be required at the lowest point in the event of a stoppage as required by the SANS standard quoted in paragraph 8 above. The purpose is that the gully overflows before sewage overflows into the house, inside the house, at the lowest point or toilets flood. We indicated the photo below will show that a sewage connection was made at the lowest point for the kitchen sink, which has been moved to a new location. Further concern and non-compliance is that there is no rodding eye to facilitate the rodding and clearance of the sewage line. I assume that rodding eyes are encased below the concrete slab or within the room where the sewage line starts. So I go along with reporting the whole thing every point by point, the kitchen and the main bathroom and the toilet cistern here is disconnected and the stop tap badly corroded, although functioning. The pan connector of the toilet on the photo above is a Corsetina type and not an approved product, as the inner diameter is not 110 millimeter and the smooth bore is required in SANS 10400 Watt B and SANS 10252 Watt 2. On the photo below, the basin connection is used to connect the water supply to the something has happened here. Just move that, that doesn't open up. The taps are pushed upwards, making them skew and allowing access to the water on the top of the basin to seep into the cupboard below. The copper pipe is class 0, which should not be bent, and as clearly can be seen, the pipe is kinked, with ultimately fail and leak. Currently, the fitting is leaking as it is, and I just go about reporting everything that I see, and I've got all the photos obviously in there. Geyser installation of pipes in the ceiling, I report on that, and I just want to get to the geyser is an older type that is 20 years and has outdated pressure relief valves. And here I must look as well, you know, if any work is done on the pipes of the geyser, the valves threads will disintegrate or break off as they become brittle over time. This is the old Latco type valves that were on this geyser. There are no replacement parts for these valves. And would the geyser be brought up to standard, they would have to be replaced by a combined pressure relief valve and one additional vacuum breaker on the hot water line. The temperature pressure relief valve pipe is longer than the required 4-meter restriction, which is a critical fail in event of overheating due to thermostat failure. So I just write it in normal terms so that they can understand. This pipe is not a correct sizing for the distance and also not supported. The green on the pipes and white on the brass fittings are explained further down in the next paragraph on corrosion. So there I go, and I write a bit on galvanic corrosion. On the photos on the next page or below this paragraph, the red arrows indicate the pipes are loose and not supported, which would damage pipes and fittings in the event of water hammer that occurs from certain incidences. Brass fittings start to corrode as zinc in the brass starts to outflow from the copper, which causes fitting to become brittle and not serviceable as they break when being loosened or tightened. The copper pipes eventually started with pitting. The long runs of pipes not being supported causes water hammer and cause leaks. So a lot of these properties are very old. So you've got to be very careful when looking at stuff like this, especially if you are reporting on the geyser, around the geyser, because most probably they're going to ask you to maybe repair this geyser. So you're just going ahead, because to repair it, it might constitute quite a few things like changing the valve, working on the pipes, and the fittings start breaking because they're brittle. You can't get them loose. So be very careful with inspection as well. And what I've said before is, like, you know, when going out for the leak on a shower, you know, you send your best guy. And obviously, yeah, exactly the same. You send the best guy, which would be the boss of the company, and he's going out there, he's going to do this inspection, and he's going to check for everything. In your conclusion, this is quite comprehensive. I made it slightly larger. It is important to state that there can be differentiated between critical and non-critical non-compliances, because this is an old house. You can't go and rebuild the house completely, but obviously we're going to look at the critical non-compliances. Critical non-compliances pose a risk to the occupant under the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the Water Services Act. The standards are quoted above is merely the standard which states how compliance to the Act will be given with the installation. With this said, it means that a liability could be laid at the person who takes responsibility in the event of a catastrophic failure or event if found that the person or persons were negligent. The house's plumbing dates prior to the 20 years, and it's understandable that there is a certain amount of wear and tear, such as flush washers inside toilets and pan seals that leak. Also, corrosion inside angle valves and taps can be seen in this nature. When it comes to the sewer line, gases, and the geyser installation, these are critical non-compliances and required to be fixed before safe occupation could be made. The manhole needs attention to clear it of roots, closing the pipe so that unobstructed flow could take place. The sewer line access needs to be located so that a rotting eye is available to access and clear the line in the event of a stoppage, and a gully at the lowest point to overflow in such an event. The sewer line then also requires an open vent, which should be above the roof. The current functioning is not affected, but sewer gases entering where there are no traps could cause a problem and is obviously non-compliant. Any sewer stoppage could pose very difficult to resolve, as the layout and plumbing installation of the drainage is mostly non-compliant, as no access is available for easy access to clear. In the event of stoppages, very unhealthy situations could occur, as there's no open vent to ventilate, and overflows of sewage could happen inside the house. This poses a serious health risk. I would strongly advise that the critical non-compliances be rectified. The other non-compliances are some which could not be rectified, as the sewer system might require structural change to effect full compliance. The other non-compliances are less critical and would be in the event of failure cause damage to the property. Venting could cause health and foul-smelling issues if the sewer gases are vented into the building and into the windows where the vents are below the roof line. The inspection is quite comprehensive, but there are many other parts of the plumbing which cannot be inspected, such as the below-ground drainage and water pipes, which are concealed. This is very important as well, to state that you can't see what's inside the walls, you can't see what's underneath the ground. So you've got to have this in. It's like a standard thing. Therefore, this report only covers the items as inspected and reported on in this document above. So you state clearly, you put parameters in here. It's only on what you've seen and what you've reported on. Then I just underlined this. Once the items discussed being non-compliant is repaired, the plumber doing the repairs would be able to issue a PLB certificate of compliance for the repairs done by him. That COC with this report would then make a full compliance report and record of the plumbing at said address. And then you just sign it off. And then I just had your documents reference to. So this is typical how you would address something like this. From the current slide. So once a report is delivered for the plumbing inspection of a property for the purpose of sale, the non-compliant issues could be corrected, and then a COC for the corrected items should be issued by the plumber making the corrections. What skills are involved with writing this technical report? You must have a good working knowledge of the SAN standards. This is very, very important. You must have good writing skills, be factually and technically correct. If legalities are involved, ensure you obtain the skill or assistance of a legal expert. My final word of caution: do you have all the relevant acts, regulations, and standards? Is your written communication up to standard as it portrays your company's professionalism? So this is very important. If you don't know your regulations and the acts and the standards, how are you going to be able to state what is non-compliant and what is compliant? If you don't even have those standards to refer to. So be very careful if you are going to put your neck on the line when you are requested to do an inspection of this nature, because you are going to be held accountable and responsible if something goes wrong and if you didn't state it in your report. So you've got to be very clear and very careful. Cheers, everyone.